Back to getting work, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Jarrett. Here with my boy Ian. How in the heck is it going, man?
What's going on, buddy? How you doing? It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been able to coordinate both of us together.
I know, right? So tonight, I thought we would do something a little bit different. We've talked about this for a while. We're going to start the What If series. So tonight, we're going to talk about what if, and just to give you a little bit of background on it, basically what if certain things in NBA history did or didn't happen. Things like, just to give you an example of one that we'll do and, down the line, what if Kobe and Shaq didn't split up? Or what if,
Sure.
Shaq had stayed in Orlando, that type of thing. That's sort of where we're, types of things. Yeah, tonight we're going to talk about Grant Hill. What if Grant Hill did not get injured? His ankle, the big bad ankle injury he had. He suffered the 99-2000 playoffs, I believe it was. Just to make sure I had to get he had been in the league about 6 going into his 7th year. He was about to be a big free agent that offseason. Maybe the biggest free agent of that offseason. It was him. Tracy McGrady was a free agent as well. Yeah, so what if Grant Hill stays healthy? Does he stay in Detroit? Does he go to Orlando still? What does his legacy look like at that point? So we'll start off with Jared's going to start us off.
Where this all got started.
Right.
I think it was the last stream we were together. Ended up just having kind of a discussion around the GOAT conversation, and kind of looking at sort of the compares there that, people want to make between like LeBron and Jordan. And that got me thinking of Grant Hill, because he would have been healthy coming into the league. He was considered one of the top players to come in, and one of those guys that could really come in. He could do a lot. A little bit closer to Scottie Pippen in the sense that he was a point forward, played small forward, similar size. Could run an offense through him very easily.
Much more down the line of the Pippen, honestly LeBron, Magic, that ilk. Big, tall, can run that point forward.
Yep.
Roll, that type of thing.
Run it all day. But see, you have him coming into the league in 1994, and then 2 years later, when 96 comes around, Kobe Bryant comes into the league.
Right.
So then, and really, I mean, I don't think it's a no-brainer. A lot of people consider
one in the West,
Kobe,
one in the East.
Yeah. But also, I was going to say that it's really no-brainer. You consider Kobe Bryant to be kind of the heir apparent from Michael Jordan, and so it's clear that if Grant Hill didn't have the injury that he had, then what does that look like, given that he'd already had 2 years into the league, probably even had closer to, probably would have had closer to 4, maybe even 5 before Kobe really started to be a starter and more of a, consistent, starting player, not coming off the bench the way he was, because he came right out of high school. Grant came from 4 years at Duke coming into the league, so he was already seen as more of established.
Was he there 4 years?
No, he was there 2 years. He was there 2 years before Kobe came into the league.
Oh, yes, right.
But he would have had 4, if not 5, before Kobe started actually becoming a starting player on the team and actually really before people really truly recognized what he could do.
What he was, yeah.
And so you kind of would have had Grant Hill in a way, at least as far as anybody else in the league. Potentially Grant Hill could have been one of those players that could have had sort of had more of that passing of the torch position, especially as he's coming in, and then he would have been established probably good 3 seasons by the time the Bulls finished with their 3rd three-peat.
Yeah, they were done. They were done at that point. There's a gap. Somebody's got to fill that
exactly.
gap.
Exactly. And it wouldn't have been, Kobe wouldn't have been in that role. He wouldn't have been there yet.
Not even just that, but I mean, even if he was, even if Kobe had been everything, because from 2000, Kobe really didn't arrive in the NBA until 2000. I mean, he obviously got drafted in 96.
Sure.
But he came off the bench and things like that. It was Shaq's team, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it really didn't it happened until pretty much 2000 on is where Kobe started to, he arrived, where he was starter. He was where the whole beef in him and Shaq started bumping heads because he was the ascending greatness that he would eventually turn out to be. But in the East, there was still this gaping hole that Michael left. Michael and Scottie, they were both gone by this time. The Bulls were, I would say, a shell of themselves, but that would be insulting to all shells out there. So they were completely in shambles at that point. If teams pretty much it was a revolving door as to who was going to be in the finals coming out of the East to get beat by the Lakers that time. It was the Pacers one year, the 76ers one year, the Nets one year, revolving door. So it wasn't like there was another dynasty that he had to have fought to get through at that point anyhow. Because so he was drafted in 94, and he was healthy pretty much from 94 until the 2000 summer of 2000, basically. His the playoffs of 2000 playoffs, I believe, is where he got hurt. But up until then, his final year there, he was averaging 25 to almost 26 points a game, shot almost 50% from the field. Again, he did all the things. He was 7 rebounds, 5-6 assists. He ran your offense. He would get you 25. Any player that can get you 25, 6, and 6, basically, especially at that time, was just a godsend. So he was that guy that he could play with anybody. His style was not a style that today we always talk about. Well, can this player play with LeBron, or could this player play with Kobe, or even back in the day, could somebody play with Michael? That type of thing.
Oh, sure.
A guy like Grant Hill, any and everybody could play with. You had a perfect style to kind of mesh with anyone. You want to be the dominant scorer? Great, no problem. If you put Grant Hill and Kobe together, they would have worked tremendously. A lot like a team from Chicago. But so that's the ilk of talent that he had at that point. And he was a free agent. And so my thought was, from the moment, the why in the road where things kind of split as far as the what if goes, is in 2000. So his Detroit years, I want to say his Detroit years were over. Period. Whether he had got hurt or not, his Detroit years were over. He was heading to Orlando, and he was going to team up with Tracy McGrady, who's who he ended up teaming up with. Everybody was trying to get him. Those were the two hot free agents at the time. Everybody wanted to get a piece of them. And
what's interesting there is that's the trade that sent Ben Wallace to Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
So then you see what happens there 4 years later, and he's kind of the anchor of that defense. And so, but yeah, on Grant Hill's side of the house, he hurts himself. Yeah, he's with Tracy McGrady. He wasn't always necessarily the most healthy player either, but also had kind of a very specific skill set. He was very good at what he did, but he didn't ultimately never really completely developed all the weapons I thought he should have to ultimately be like
T-Mac or Grant. Okay.
No, yeah. I mean,
right.
I think
T-Mac was another one. He's another one we could almost do a what if on, to be honest with you.
Sure.
But really, T-Mac at that point was at the height of his powers. From that point forward, I guess. In other words, and that's sort of the other piece of everything. T-Mac was just kind of coming into his own. This was going to be his first time stepping out of the shadow of Vince Carter, because as long as he was in Toronto,
yeah,
that was Carter's world. So he came down, and again, Grant Hill comes down as the established. You knew what you were getting with Grant Hill. You saw the potential and upside still of McGrady. Everybody wanted him because of that potential and upside, but Grant was the established. He was the all-star starter. He was that guy already in the East.
Yeah.
So fortunately, ego clearly wasn't a thing for him. He's that type of player that could get along with just about anybody. And
just about any offense too.
Sure.
Really,
sure.
you know, I mean, just about any system you could put him in, he would do fine. You know.
Right. I mean, again, point forward. Back when point forward is the only guy that really had that moniker was Scotty at the time.
Pretty
he was
much.
The one that coined it, and
yeah.
honestly, Grant was the one that was going to take that spot over, and he was doing that. Grant. It is interesting that you brought up that Ben Wallace went to Detroit because of that. Because 4 years later, Detroit, of course, wins their championship. Would they have been the rival? Would they have gotten that title if Grant is healthy?
If Grant, and I would say at least let's cut like a quarter of the injuries off of McGrady.
At that point, had McGrady, I don't think McGrady has started getting injured yet. Let me look it up.
I can't remember,
go ahead.
But I mean, if anything else, let's say injuries or not, let's say Grant Hill's not injured, and let's say McGrady's at at least, let's say 100% Grady, or maybe even to closer to like 85-90% Grady, you know, then sure. I mean, out of the East at that point in time,
McGrady's getting his 2 scoring titles during this time.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably about looking as good as they're going to get. You've got them, and then you've got Philly with Iverson. Is probably going to be. Hey, what's up, and Righteous?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Oh yeah, we're sports fans in general. I'd say again, for me, it's probably NBA, NCAA is kind of like my top sport. Then football, and then you get me drunk enough with some hot dogs, I can watch the grass grow in the baseball field.
I thought you were going to circle back to say it was basketball again. Basketball is 1,
FIBA.
also 5.
It's FIBA. No.
We got football.
Exactly.
No, baseball. See, I'm a baseball person too. So that's I can. I'm a Mets fan, so baseball has not been kind to me over the years. But that was then. This is now. It's a new world here. But so as Mets fans, we're very excited about that. But you work for security? Oh, nice. Yeah, that would be really fun or really annoying. I can't decide which one it would be. If it would be really fun all the time to be the security at a stadium,
especially if it's a professional stadium. Even if say like the team sucked, at the very least you'd see all those other teams come in and be able to catch all. You were there at the games, and as long as no one's being too drunk and stupid, you're kind of getting a chance to get paid to watch a game.
Well, if the home
depending on where you
really
are.
Bad,
then people are going to get more drunk and more stupid.
It's almost a requirement.
But we're big sports fans.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm basketball. Football and baseball are sort of close to me. It depends on what's happening with everything for me. I can kind of go either direction as far as which one jumps ahead. A friend of mine is trying to get me into watching hockey. Haven't been able to do that yet. Hockey and soccer are a struggle for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say hockey. Yeah, I don't mind watching. I would rather watch. I'd put hockey, then soccer, then baseball, as far as like being able to watch it without wanting to gouge my eyes out.
Well, now when I say baseball, I can't just pop on a baseball game with any team playing. That's always sort of my stance on as far as which sport is really my favorite. Can you just pop on a game, an NBA game, any game, and just start getting into it and watch it? I'm asking you.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Like any game on baseball, or just like
basketball.
See, I don't See, I really the way I'm kind of wired, like other than like the team formerly known as the Redskins, just because I grew up with them.
What are they called now?
But the Commanders now, the Commodores. I think that what you do is name them the Commodores and put what's his face on what's the lead singer for the Commodores? Did Dancing on the Ceiling and
I know you're talking about
had the big afro.
That I blanked on it. Yes,
should be his face. Lionel Richie.
Yeah,
they should put Lionel Richie's face on the side of the helmet.
Is it me you're looking for?
But and I think this is why NBA is more like I can watch a sport because I ultimately could care less about a team. Like group identity is very hard for me. And that's probably been the biggest thing is hard, like really kind of keeps me from being like a true to form fan. Because it's like to a point, like I can pretty much if I like the sport, then I can go and watch the sport. I could care less who's winning. I could care less or anything like that. Unless I got money on the line, I don't care. You know, fantasy football, whatever.
I was just going to say, see, that's where fantasy football is the one that, or fantasy sports, I guess in general.
Sure.
But fantasy football is definitely the one that has made me be able to turn on any football game and watch that game, be very invested in that game because, I have Lamar Jackson and he needs to get a touchdown before this minute and a half is over in the game so that I can win and that type of thing. Honestly, fantasy football, that's pretty much what has driven, I think, the NFL to the heights. It was already heading to the heights, but that's what just has blown it through the roof.
Because the way the game's constituted, it plays itself to sort of that fantasy league stuff. Basketball and baseball and those other ones, they don't work as well.
No,
it works, but it just doesn't work as well.
They happen a lot. It's tough for people like you and I that we've got, and this isn't to make fun of.
Oh, it's jobs and families and just
you're just busy. Got stuff happening.
Yeah.
So 3, 4, 5 games a week is a lot different than I can get the lineup set, get everybody. I just need to pay attention long enough on Sunday morning to make sure that nobody's hurt, surprisingly hurt, and get them in the lineup and hang on, for one day. That's a lot different than I got to switch my lineup out. Daily fantasy would be tough for me.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Right, saying he's a big boxing fan. I was back in the day, and I think a lot of people say that they were like back in the day, and now it's like if it's the right kind of fight, like if it was a Mayweather fight or Pacquiao or something like that. But I think also like a lot of people, I had shifted more to the UFC.
Sure.
And even then, it's like if it's on, and so again, I'll gladly watch it, and I'll watch highlights of it and kind of watch it that way. But it's been a while since I've sat down and kind of just got like a pay-per-view, even like a UFC fight and done something with that. But yeah, I was a huge boxing fan. Like old school boxing, like kind of especially like being a kid of the '80s, like the Mike Tyson.
I was gonna say everybody was a Tyson fan back then. Yeah.
He brought people into the sport that wouldn't have watched it otherwise.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Because we want to talk about big draws or big people that put butts in seats. Then
still today,
yeah.
And he's 1,000, and we all know he's not what he used to be. And if you go, he's gonna fight Mayweather. Okay, we'll watch. I mean, Mayweather's gonna win. But
if they put something where they said that Mike Tyson was going to be at someone's corner, that's going to draw people in.
People will start watching. They're there. No, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do the box office one. That's a really good one. Actually, I wouldn't have thought of Tyson, but kind of start to. I mean, still as old as he is, he's still that box office guy. Mm-hmm. If he just says that he's going to be somewhere, people tune in. That's
But back to the Grant Hill thing, right? Because basically, we were talking about how the East would have sorted itself out, assuming Grant's still healthy. We got McGrady coming off of scoring titles. Let's say he stays pretty on par, and I would say if anything else starts to develop at least some semblance of a jump shot, then
at this point
that would have been tough.
Just to run through where McGrady was during this time. McGrady, the first year they were together, was the voted most improved player. Then he was his first All NBA first team.
Nice.
And then year 3 was his first scoring title, and year 4 was his second scoring title.
So when did McGrady start to?
It wasn't until Houston. It was Houston where it started to the wheels started to come off.
Okay.
In Orlando, the wheels wouldn't have. Grant was the problem in Orlando because he wasn't what he was.
He was so hurt. Yeah, right. So he basically had the 1 year. He had on the Wikipedia thing for McGrady. It says 2004-05 season, 13 points in 35 seconds.
I remember that game. That was
and then started having then had it basically kind of starting kind of in that 04-05, 05-06, the injuries and missing games and and it's just. And then it's 08-09 when he had the season-ending surgery, and then it was just pretty much became a journeyman from there.
We're talking about Grant Hill, but think of the effect that a healthy Grant Hill has on Tracy McGrady. The biggest knock on Tracy McGrady, the biggest knock on him, never gets his team out of the first round of playoffs.
Yeah.
Never happened. How much different is he viewed in history? Like, there's that ripple effect. It's one of those... It's hard to even see all of the different. I was trying to think of what it is in Loki, the splitting of the multiverse that happens because Grant Hill is just healthy. Like the effect that he has. First off, T-Mac likely never goes to Houston.
Probably not.
All of those, all of those, they're getting at least one. I say they give at least one title, for sure. For sure, one. I think they would have been the team that played. They would have beat Detroit. So I think they would have beat Detroit, which means Detroit doesn't get their title. And then by that time, the Lakers were having some serious internal problems. Even though Kobe and Shaq were in their primes, or Kobe was heading to his prime. They were having, Kobe wasn't passing the ball, Shaq wasn't passing him the ball. You can't have stuff like that and still win a championship, no matter how immensely talented you were. That was the team that also had Karl Malone and Gary Payton trying to tag on for. They had won 3, they were trying to go for 4, and so it was not 04. I believe it's 04. There would have been a rookie. A rookie would have been showing up in 2003 in the East as well. I wonder what kind of an effect it would have had with a possible powerhouse team in Orlando, and an upstart rookie from Cleveland at the time that was looking to kind of take over. As far as
the East would have been
in 03.
Looking much stronger, because this was kind of again that early mid 2000s where it was just the West was stacked and the East
was
just
in the West.
They were just happy to show up. They were just happy to show up.
Yeah. Once the Bulls, even when the Bulls were around and you looked at the East versus the West, it wasn't exactly a who's who in the East. They had teams, but it wasn't. Once you get past about team 3.
Sure.
Once you got past the Pacers, once you got past the Bulls, there was a huge drop to number 2. Let's say it was the Knicks. They weren't scaring anybody.
Not really.
The Pacers, they weren't scaring anybody. They had their shot. They got, unfortunately, they were during the tough years of being blanketed in, under the wake of the Bulls at the time. So lots of teams were. They might have been able to get a title here or there along the way, but they weren't exactly dynasty driven. A team with T-Mac and Grant Hill, though, both healthy, because at this point T-Mac's real healthy.
Right.
In fact, he's the only guy that's healthy. He's on a one-man team though at the time. If Grant Hill joins him, that's a lot. That team's a lot different. Now you add a couple of little pieces. Now you're looking pieces as opposed to star.
Exactly. Yeah. You get someone. He's got someone who can score and just wants to score. Which for Grant Hill, perspective is perfect.
Yes,
because that helps him to be able to drive the offense from there and be able to do his things while still getting his points. I mean, one of the things again, we gotta pay attention that his points per game over the course of his actual career was still really solid and was still a 7-time NBA All-Star.
Right.
And still managed to get into there before, even after the injury. And then just, NBA first team, NBA second team, all rookie first team. I mean, just he had just accolades just down the line. And that was even including having so much of his career taken off of him. But with a guy like McGrady, where, again, like also Grant Hill's a great guy to be able to yeah, what do you do? Because, and again, it would be kind of similar to that Bull situation where it's like, okay, we gotta have the gravity going to say the big time scorer, but you can't leave Grant.
Yeah.
So
I'm out there playing.
No.
No, absolutely. And Grant had been groomed from the start to be a champion. Like he was very comfortable in those situations, even way back. Everybody, I don't know if you're the NCAA fan as well, but back we both remember I want to say it was 91 to somewhere in 92. I want to say, I can't remember exactly, where everybody remembers the Hail Mary. It was Duke versus, was it Kentucky?
I think it was.
For some reason, Kentucky is in my head, but championship game. Long pass that comes down. Christian Laettner catches it and turns and shoots a free throw jumper to win the championship. The guy that threw the ball is Grant Hill.
Yeah.
So, and Christian Laettner was all world in college and we never heard from him again. And as a Virginia fan, I was glad to see that. So
he just didn't have the skill set to excel at the NBA level. It was kind of like a Tebow kind of curse. It was, exceptionally good in college.
Yeah.
But it just
got a
isn't
lot of calls.
It isn't gonna translate to. I mean, again, you do this stuff like gets calls and all this stuff. I eliminate those variables because ultimately they don't matter as much as people think they do. It matters to them because they see the calls and they're like, oh, that bum gets all the calls. But ultimately, like looking through, like statistically speaking, it doesn't actually matter as much as people even think it does to the actual statistics of the game.
Changing type of calls that would happen with.
Maybe, but again, it didn't really ultimately didn't matter because
in moment in time.
He didn't have no way Laettner had the kind of skill set to be able to go across into the NBA. It just wasn't going to happen.
He wasn't special. Once he got to the NBA, it was like, oh, okay, you're big. So is everybody else.
Right.
Else was yeah.
Well, it's just also just, you got to consider going up against some guys that are going to be take your worst matchup. And this goes for anybody making that transition from college into the NBA. You take your best matchup, and then that's likely to be, again, as far as the type of player, probably going to be the second worst guy you're going to see.
Right.
And then you're having to make those growing pains and be and the speed of the game. I think that's another thing too, especially for some a lot of college bigs. The speed of the game just completely throws him off. But Hill's always, pretty much always going to be the guy to do the inbounds. He's again similar to Scotty in that way. And
he was, like I said, he was just you saw the pedigree. He had so some guys, they may have the talent, but the headspace isn't always where it needs to be. There have been, goodness, how many good players that have we seen as far as talent? J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith has a lot of talent, tons of talent, lots of ability. He can run, he can jump, he can shoot, he can do all the things. For some reason he can't do little things like remember.
Yeah, it's just it's just sort of being able to. Well, it's just you can also kind of see people too, where it's like ultimately at the end of it all, you're going to be someone who's always okay. No matter how good I am, I'm going to be better next year.
Yes,
you got to have that mentality, because you get those guys that rely too much on certain tricks or certain things.
Sure.
You got that little bit of a step faster again around everyone around you, and then you get to the NBA and it's like, oh crap. And you're not able to.
He was adding those.
Oh
yeah, all the star players, right?
Yeah,
I mean, Jordan. We'll use Jordan as the example. Jordan of '84 was, tongue wagging, chain hanging from his neck. He still had hair.
I know.
Chicago in cursive across the chest, and he was trying to dunk on everybody. Every single play there was drive to the hoop and dunk. That was the play. Jordan, get out of the way and let Jordan try to dunk.
Because of the Pistons, because of just the way the bully ball and just the fouls and everything else.
And he was gangly Jordan. Yeah. This isn't bulked up Jordan. You know
what Jordan did? Jordan on that off season did the One Punch Man workout. Became Superman and lost all of his hair. Yes.
Here we go. Let's roll.
He did the One Punch Man workout, and next thing you know, he's like,
"That's good."
He became a freaking monster, not to go up against the Pistons, but but it made him a beast against everybody else.
It did. Because that was always the thing that was sort of missing with him. Yeah, you could. Yeah. So.
And he may have gotten there, but he wouldn't have gotten there in one season. No, on one off season. But yeah,
he added pieces. Grant did the same thing. Grant, when he first came in, his jump shot was iffy. It wasn't the best little thing that he had. He was athletic. He was able to. Yeah. It was like the form was right. It just didn't go in. There was no other way to say it. He improved.
Well, I think for a lot, and again, if you did consider the way basketball was played back then, I think it was fairly common with a lot of forwards. Because you got to imagine, he played a lot of power forward at Duke, and then came into the NBA, and then swapped down, went down to small forward. Again, still like his base core skill set worked perfectly as a small forward in the NBA, but a lot like a lot of forwards developing that jump shot.
He had always been taking
was kind of a big problem.
Anyhow,
sure, yeah. But there was a lot of drive into the basket, that kind of thing. And so now he was always going to move things around. But okay, so sticking with the what if thing.
Right.
So we have. Let's argue that McGrady still goes to Houston.
Still goes.
Even if he's, let's say from there, then everything goes down the path that it does for him. And then, because that's what it did. Grant Hill. So, depending on where he is on his contract.
Well, they would have both been free agents at that point. So if T-Mac leaves, he leaves, because their contracts end at the same time. They signed them at the same time. Like I said, they both signed whatever the biggest contract was back at that time, whatever the max contract was, they signed it. They signed them both. That was the deal.
And then who out west was really just starting to hit his stride?
That would have been in 04, 05. So around the same time, if memory serves, there was a certain free agent. There was another person who was also a free agent that summer. That would have been one Mr. Kobe Bean Bryant. He was a free agent.
And you want to try and have a conversation about how to keep Mr. Kobe Bryant happy and staying in LA?
Well, at the end of the day, to keep Mr. Kobe Bean happy, it was to get rid of Shaq.
Well, and
that was what made him happy. Because if they hadn't gotten rid of Shaq, it was either or at that point.
Pretty much.
So the Lakers had gotten to the point. They had lost in the finals. They had won 3 straight. They went to the 4. They lost their 4th one. that's just how dominant they were. They were only getting better.
Yeah.
They had stumbled into 3 championships. As weird as that sounds, they fell.
Oh, we're gonna do another one on if the Lakers stayed together, because that's a whole nother conversation.
That team, I gotta tell you, Shaq and Kobe, if they had just been
people they had around them.
Yes, we're gonna. Yeah, I don't want to sidetrack.
But let's say,
summer,
but
Kobe is a free agent.
Kobe's a free agent. Okay, they play ball and they get rid of Shaq, but they still need to bring someone in for him to play with. Someone with a very specific skill set that's going to find you and
you're saying the anti-Shaq.
The anti-Shaq.
Skill sets and things like that.
Someone who's like, hey, bro, this is your team. How can I help you out?
Just saying, we can do this now. But hang on, somewhere along the way, let me check this as well. Though Dwight Howard shows up somewhere along this time as well. I don't remember exactly when Dwight Howard was a free agent. Would that have been enough to keep him in Orlando? And of course, at this point, then none of that happens because all of that. Dwight Howard never goes there.
Yeah,
because they're not a bad team, so they're not getting the #1 pick.
Exactly.
So Dwight Howard doesn't end up there, right?
And I don't know if Howard's enough to keep him in there. I think, especially
Howard
given
at the time was a major, but he wasn't coming because now you got to go with they're a top 2-3 team in the league.
Exactly.
Now you're drafting whoever the bottom, you're drafting.
So like he would have, like Howard would have just been coming in. He doesn't go to the Lakers till 2012. So
Howard,
yeah,
and he was a bum by that time.
Yeah,
he was heading toward being a bum. Kobe broke him. Kobe broke him. We talked one time about, if Scottie hadn't to play with Jordan, would Scottie's mental stability be better than it is currently? Dwight Howard, without question, would be better
without playing with Kobe.
That trade for Chris Paul gone through as opposed to.
And Kobe wasn't anywhere near as bad as Jordan, but he had just enough. Yeah.
He wasn't as bad, but maybe for the time period, he might have been just as bad. You know what I mean? For the different 20 years later type of thing.
But you get, and that's not, I mean, you kind of work through like what the team could potentially look like, but just having Kobe, an interesting trivia fact. So you talk about, like, Shaq goes away, this other stuff. Shaq gets like a title without Kobe and then kind of falls off from there. Kobe Bryant has never won a title without Derek Fisher on the team.
Yeah, true. This is true. A weird,
because Derek Fisher goes to the Utah Jazz for a bit and then comes back.
Mm-hmm.
I think Phil also went away and then came back, right? And then
yes,
the way it was all constituted.
About that, but I can't remember.
You'd have
because isn't that during the time where he writes a book about basically kind of bad mouthing Kobe in it?
I think so.
Like,
I think so.
Fallout. For some reason, this is one of those foggy memories. He writes a book. He retires. He writes a book about how Kobe's a prima donna, basically. And there's like huge fallout. And then 3 or 4 years later, they're like, "Nah, we're all good.
Yeah,
come back. Let's win.
Let's go back and win." Exactly.
Hey, Paul Gasol, come on down.
But if you keep a healthy, because you got to realize, I mean, Kobe and Grant Hill's careers are only 2 years off on either end.
Right.
Thereabouts.
But Grant Hill is much older than him. Well, when I say much, he's somewhere in the 4.
Because he did college. He was like probably like 3, probably like 3.5 tops. He was in that range. Right. So no, yeah, he would have been kind of declining, but you're still looking.
He's still at the height of his powers, healthy.
Healthy Grant Hill at that point in time. And let's say, he may have had like a season where he lost maybe like half a season with just kind of a nagging injury that anybody could get. Okay,
sure,
fair enough.
Yeah. We're talking about the injury that derailed.
Yeah, not this. Not this level.
Because it also trajectory up until he was heading to superstardom.
Those leg injuries, that kind of stuff, man. It just compounds. You get like a bad ankle, you start overcompensating with something else, and then it makes something else happen. And it just exactly, and it's just, or if you hurt your knee, then it goes both ways. You just, I know.
I was gonna say, you know.
I know for sure.
Mine was ankles. Mine are ankles. See, I can't walk without if I get near a hole, a field that has a hole or little divot in it, I'm like, that's the most terrifying thing to me to this day.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But it compounded. So again, if you think about 04, let's say like the kind of, let's say even like the 05 season, 04-05 season, Grant's there. I'm trying to figure this. I'm thinking like Derek Fisher's probably going to be there. More than likely, in general, just even if like the titles aren't quite like in the it's like the titles it's right at your fingertips, and so then you kind of figure out like power. You get your power forward situation, and you just got to get your bigs worked out. Like, what are your bigs going to look like there?
So your big, honestly, if you're I went and pulled up the Lakers team roster from that time. Don't laugh at the name, because you have to remember the time period. The time period you could have had. So if you have Grant Hill, let's say Grant Hill goes to the Lakers. So Shaq is gone. Shaq was going either way. That would not affect Grant Hill in any way, shape, or form. So Grant, let's say the Lakers signed
freed
Grant.
Up salary.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing else, right? So we got him out. We bring in Grant Hill. So now you have Grant Hill, Kobe Bryant. I mean, honestly, you could have probably put me on that team and they still win a title. But
at least one.
Yeah, right. At center, they have a rookie named Andrew Bynum.
Oh, hell yeah.
Andrew Bynum was a good-ish player for the time period for about 3 years until I think he started getting hurt is one of it.
Well, he kind of started getting, but it also was just kind of a toughness kind of thing.
He fell into the J.R. Smith category.
But see, also, like, then it also kind of begs the question of sort of the locker room effect of having Grant Hill on your team.
Sure.
There's some of that kind of
that Parker as well. So.
But if you think, I mean, okay, so Kobe's got, and see, I think even Fisher would have been happy with that too, because Fisher, in general, was happier being more of a spot-up shooter type guard.
Sure.
Than the running of the offense is on me.
No, he definitely falls in the Steve Kerr role, John Paxson. He's that guy.
Like he's right. He's
a point guard only in name and height.
And they're running that triangle offense.
Right.
Perfectly suited for that.
Yes.
Kobe can handle the ball.
Kobe assumes your Jordan role.
Kobe can handle the ball when he needs to. Fisher can handle the ball when he needs to, but for the most part, the ball's in the hand of your three. And boom, Grant Hill could do that in spades. And so then it's just a matter of just figuring out what your 4 and your 5 is going to look like. If you got Bynum, a good young Bynum at that point in time, that's nasty. That's nasty. I'm just saying.
To be fair, there's also another guy immensely. Again, I hate to keep using J.R. Smith as the whipping boy here, but the shoe fits. There is one that Mr. Lamar Odom. Before Kardashian.
I forgot about Odom. Oh, F yeah, Odom.
I was gonna say,
F yeah, Odom. Dude could shoot threes.
Right.
Yes.
He's that,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's ugly.
Actually, a really good team.
That's ugly.
That is a really good team.
And
right
if things are, and
now,
again, you get guys like Bynum too, especially early on. If they're winning early in his career, you know, I'm just thinking about little kind of shifts to things that can help someone. Because I think, Bynum got some injuries too, but I think the biggest part of him was mental. And I think if you got the right. You got a guy like Grant Hill in the locker room, and you're winning, dude. Bynum, because Shaq, like I say, he said like, Bynum was a beast. Bynum had skill. Like he was just like, it was kind of like just like, I recognize you, big man. You know what I'm saying? Like he spoke up about Bynum, which he wouldn't do for the most part. I think like basically it was like Yao Ming, Andrew Bynum. He was like, man, like that. Dude, that kid's got some stuff. And then he said that like Elijah, obviously he recognized Olajuwon because you have to be stupid not to. And then he said like big
top centers of all time.
We're like, but it was like Big Country and Yao Ming obviously were guys that can kind of really beef up with him. I'm talking about the game people that Shaq has mentioned.
Sure.
As like playing up against them, and it's like, all right, I see you. You know what I mean? It's like I can't play around with you. You know, He was saying, especially like defensively, on defense, he couldn't play around with Country, and it's just, you know, he had to actually like really work for his points. You know, Yao Ming was always a problem because he's like freaking dynamic,
so big.
And again, outside of injuries, exactly. And I mean, and if, again, like I said, if you don't like, just look up the stat sheet. Just look up the stat sheet if you don't recognize Olajuwon for just the absolute beast that dude was. Just stupid.
I'm always surprised by, and I shouldn't be because I remembered Olajuwon, but it's weird.
Sure,
Olajuwon,
like the dream shake.
Like I don't remember him being. You look back, and I'm always more impressed looking back. As weird as that sounds.
Yep.
I look at his. I remember him playing. I remember him winning titles, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you know, Olajuwon." It was probably a little bit of that East Coast bias type of deal. I'm in the East. I don't see Houston play all that much.
Yeah,
probably a little bit of that. But man, at the time, I was always kind of lumping him with, okay, it's him, and there's Patrick Ewing's about the same, and no, they're not. I like Patrick Ewing. I'm a Bulls fan, but the Knicks.
Oh, Patrick, I've always respected. I remember watching him in college, like Georgetown and things like that when he came over, coming into the league, and the NBA and everything like that. I've always had mad respect for Ewing's game but I'm also always. You're also always a bit more of a wing watcher. I was always watching the post,
the big people.
Like I love beautiful. Like again, I think still to this day, it's kind of like once Tim Duncan left the NBA. A lot of that kind of like that good pure post player kind of left with him, you know.
Sure.
Which is a shame. But
a lot of that. Go ahead.
No, the only thing I was going to say too. Actually, I'll let you make your point because I'm going to try and move off of it. Because what I was going to say, you know, who wasn't playing really in 04 when this whole team would have been constructed was Olajuwon.
No,
not like. No. I mean, so but again, you talk about like what the West would have looked like.
You did mention another guy though. That path to the title may not have been quite as easy as we originally in our head built this team. So we're saying Grant Hill in the what if category. Grant Hill goes from Detroit. Either way, Grant Hill ends up in Orlando. That was where before the split in his ankle getting injured, he was headed to Orlando. We say he stays there through his contract for 4 years. And then at the end of that contract, we say that he'd won at least one title by that time.
I think so.
And then he would have gone to he could have gone to LA.
Goes to LA.
Team up with Kobe. Kobe wanted Shaq out of there. Shaq was out of there either way. They're like unrelated to Grant Hill. Grant Hill comes there, and the Lakers would reform with Kobe, Hill, Bynum, and Lamar
Odom and Fisher
being the four there.
Yeah.
And we initially that feels like, oh, that's championships until the end of time. There's another team in the West at that point, though. A young, already has won a championship team.
The
San Antonio
Tim Duncan.
Spurs.
Well, that was going to be that was going to be the thing. Like they were going to be the gatekeepers for that.
Yeah.
They were going to be the gatekeepers for that, and I think
I forgot about them briefly.
Oh, sure.
That's Tim Duncan's career, right? Like,
and I mean, and that's
one of those guys you look back like, dang on it, he was.
That's
really
like
good.
Ginobili. That's like you're starting to get like in the mix where like that whole like
Tony Parker,
Ginobili,
yeah,
all that stuff. That's where a lot of that's starting to come into play.
Younger versions of them, not the old, decrepit one that was stole. You know, well, not stole. They straight up took title from Miami. Should have had two. Oh
yeah,
Ray Allen saved Mr. LeBron's little legacy big time. But but that was a Tim Duncan on one leg, Ginobili on a half a leg.
Yeah.
Tony Parker, I don't know what if he had legs, but they were nothing. But this isn't that team. This is the
No, and I mean, and you know what a big fan I am of Pop,
right?
And Duncan, and I mean, so no, I mean, you got to kind of start to look at it from there. I mean, if you look at let's consider, so I don't know how many years we want to give this before it starts falling apart for who knows how many reasons.
Oh yeah, by this time Grant Hill is in his 10th. 04 when he would get to the Lakers. Would he be in the Lakers? No, he would be there in 05. So he'd be entering his 11th year by that time.
Okay.
Anybody 11 years in is not the same guy that they were 5 years in.
But you also got to consider that he's playing the type of role that you can age well.
Sure.
Into that again, barring injuries and stuff like that.
Athleticism.
He's not trying to drive to the basket. He's not getting beat up by the bigs. He's he's more playing kind of more of that floor general type of role. So he can.
If we even use an example, sorry, I mean.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
To even back that hypothesis up, look at what Grant Hill became at the.
It happened earlier for him. Yeah.
It happened so much earlier. So
yeah, we already got a view of what it would look like. Yeah. Oh, you froze up, dude. I just lost the end. No.
At the end of his career, he
you
was still
completely...
a very solid player.
Oh yeah.
He was heady. It was, he knew how to run the offense.
Right.
Could he blow by you? No. Was he going to dunk on you? No. Were you afraid of either of those two things? No.
No.
He could shoot better.
Exactly.
He could still run the offense. He knew where to be. Defensively, He knew where to be. Honestly,
and he was also one of those players that could position things to then put his teammates in places.
Right.
To make their shot easier and stuff like that. And if you can be just enough of a threat, if you're getting 16, 17 points a game, even if that drops down to 15, 14, the other team's got to pay attention to you just enough to where then you can kind of start to maneuver, and then that frees up, especially in that triangle, freeing up areas to where then you can make passes, and then and then you've still got Kobe Bryant on the other hand that they've got to contend with. So you want to talk about gravity,
Scorer was not going to be the problem.
No, yeah. So I mean, but you couldn't play off him. Like you couldn't play off him. Like he was going to get you points, almost in a way kind of similar. I mean, if you look at you're talking about Ginobili, like maybe kind of an older Ginobili, that kind of skill set, and Grant Hill picked up kind of a similar thing, and he's kind of picked up that kind of same thing, just sort of that old man ball, but next thing you know, he's dropped 12 on you, and you're like, where the hell did that come from? And then Kobe's over scoring 30, and you're like, oh crap, like what do you do?
Well, because Grant Hill, really honestly, even if we're doing the what if, but if in his real career, you almost see it as it went from, like I said, super all-star, there's trajectories going straight up this way to here, and there was no that this year 2001 should have been still going this direction. Instead it dropped off a cliff and dropped down to I'm now 35.
Yeah.
And you know, where so now, but in 2006, 2007, even with all the injuries, with all the, like I said, he had been sapped by this time. Not in our what if world, but in the real world, he averaged 14, 4, and 2, which doesn't sound like great numbers. But if you had a guy that was 35 getting those numbers, you're like, oh yeah, no,
exactly. Also, you got to consider, you know, how many
type of thing.
How many minutes is he actually getting, and then who's he playing with?
Sure, yeah,
and
he's only
you know,
only 65 games at the time. But yeah, so that I use that to use the example of he wouldn't have fallen off. He wouldn't have been at 14 at this point. He would have been more in the 19, 18 point.
Exactly.
Below 20, he's probably not getting 20.
Oh no, maybe, I don't think so. But I don't think he needs to be.
You know,
but he could have been. He, especially for that kind of team. For that kind of team, sure. He'd have been kissing 10 assists easy.
Oh, easily. Right.
You know. So I think that. I mean, even if like let's consider the fact like who he'd be replacing Rick Fox, and they still kept him on the team, and they could bring him off the bench and just start dropping threes all over the place. I mean,
Rick Fox by this time I think is gone. I think Rick Fox is gone. Rick Fox would have been retired. Yeah, he was before that because somewhere around this top, Big Shot Bob shows up. You got to remember Robert Horry shows up. Yeah, so Horry is around. I don't remember exactly when that is, but I want to say Robert Horry got there in 02, 01. He's there during their title runs.
Exactly. So I want to say Horry was Horry on their team in the 2000.
I thought that was a team he wasn't on.
So Rick Fox was still on the team.
Rick Fox was on that team.
On the 2000.
Fox was on the first one, but I don't know that he's on the second one.
So let me see.
He's gone after the second one.
2003. So he's on the 2003, 2004 Lakers team. Let's look at the 04, 05.
Rick Fox is?
So Fox was on the 03, 04.
Oh, okay.
He would have left. He would have left. But you're right though. If Grant Hill's coming in on the 04, 05 season, then yeah, Rick Fox would have retired. Would have been. And I don't know if he just even retired or whatever. But
right.
Then they had
because like Horace Grant is on that team. 2001 Lakers. Yeah, Horace Grant, your boy, Grant.
Oh yeah,
is on that team. But I'm looking to see after that. When do they not break up, but when do they lose the height of their powers?
Well, I would say, so yeah, it's kind of that 04, 05 season where things start to blow up because actually, so that's when Derek Fisher went to the Jazz.
Right.
And let's say they were able to keep him. I think, like, you get a player like a solid player, and again, kind of a player that's still really kind of in his prime.
He only leaves because the whole team is breaking up by that
exactly.
Yeah.
So you get, if you get Jackson to stay, potentially Fisher, but I think bringing Grant Hill in is going to break that conundrum of not winning without Fisher. It's not like Fisher's the one that's making Kobe Bryant win. He's always said it was his favorite partner in the backcourt.
Well, I mean, if you think
he's
about
not
it,
the one that's.
Robert Horry has won more championships than Michael Jordan, which means ergo Robert Horry.
No, it's just it's just a weird. Well, no, because again, to me, then I'd also have a bazillion other arguments why I would say, Bill Russell, which again, who actually has even more legitimate things that you could talk about than Robert Horry ever will. Like, but no, I'm just thinking. No, it was two things because it was Jackson left, and the only reason why I bring up the Fisher thing because one, it's just a weird trivia thing. But Kobe Bryant has come in and like stated like not long after he retired, he flat out said Fisher was his favorite partner in the backcourt.
Sure.
Career, like his entire career, his number one guy. So I'm kind of thinking about like
that's because Fisher when Kobe went.
Oh yeah.
Fisher always throwing the ball. That's why he was his favorite. It was nothing else. That was why right there.
It's got to be more than that crap.
Of course.
But
that is a big part of it. You
bring him. Oh no. I mean, you're not stupid. You got Kobe Bryant. You pass him the ball. Also, because who else do you have really around you? Like, you got Lamar Odom. Again, I forgot about Lamar. Especially at that point in time. That's huge.
There were no Kardashians involved. It was just him.
So, and again, it's also even better because then it's a no-brainer. Like, there's no conversation. Not there would be much of one with if Rick Fox was still on there, but like there's no like, even with like the optics with fans, nothing. It's like there's no reason because you're not starting Caron Butler over freaking Grant Hill.
Really? I don't know. I mean,
I don't even know if you have Butler.
Let him work it out a little bit.
I don't even know.
Open competition.
I don't even know if you'd have Caron Butler at that point.
I'm not positive you do.
Because you got to consider how much of this is there because of the money that you're sitting there with, because you just got rid of Shaq.
Right. So let me ask this. Let me ask if we've talked about the type of ripple effect that a healthy Grant Hill has in the league. How many, at the end of the day, how many titles does Grant Hill have if he stays healthy?
Assuming he has one with Orlando.
Assuming he has one with Orlando, because I think he gets one with Orlando, and I think he comes in as the defending champ. He comes to LA as the guy that had just beat LA.
Right.
I believe that's sort of how, which would have been an interesting dynamic. Think of Kobe, not the Kobe who was going on the tour, the fanfare tour at the end of his career. Not that guy. But I want to cut your throat out and step on it along the way competitor.
Don't be so sure about that mentality. If you look at the course of the career, Ron Artest gave Kobe Bryant problems. Who comes into the Lakers?
Fair enough.
Trevor Ariza gives Kobe Bryant problems. Who comes over to the Lakers?
Right.
Like the year after.
Right.
You see what I mean?
So
there's that evidence. If anything else, it's like, okay, I just don't want to have to face it. That, but also I just don't want to have to face your ass.
There is that. Absolutely.
I'm just not wanting to deal with that right now. That's where him and Jordan differed a bit.
Yes.
That's where him and Jordan differed. And where he didn't have quite that same level of insanity about it, He was like, like you said, game recognizes game. It's like, if I don't have to face you, it's going to make my season even easier, or at least my playoffs easier, or whatever the hell it is. Like, no, I mean, he's done. And there's a couple other, I'm sure there's a couple other names there you could think about. He's like, like one, also kind of like, you consider maybe like to Kobe's ego. He's like, well, hell, if he gave me that much trouble, what can he do to everyone else in the league?
We are good. Together.
So I think he wouldn't have had a problem.
Sure.
Bringing Grant Hill.
I don't either. Yeah,
Jackson.
I don't think it would have been.
Jackson would have been fighting to hide the drooling.
Oh my goodness.
Because again, we talked about this on like one game. You're basically looking at that Chicago team 2.0.
Wait, I get young Michael and Scotty again? Done. I mean, yeah, that sounds okay.
Lamar Odom is as good, if I'd probably argue better fit at the 4 than either Ho Grant or Kukoc at that point in time. At least as good.
Depending on what we're talking about, he's a better. I don't know. I think he's in the middle. He's not as good of an offensive player as Kukoc.
He's not as good of a defender as Ho Grant, but he's got a little bit of
2 for both of them. Like he's second.
You got it. That, and that's kind of that's where I put him too. But then you've got I would say, let me argue this. I'd say he's a more complete player than either one of them, because he has enough scoring. He has enough of the defense there. He doesn't have to even be, because if you really push Bynum bring him in and really
Bynum's
start
a
to
rookie at this point. Bynum is good for about 4 years.
hungry,
5?
big man.
Yeah, no. I mean, as far as a career, Bynum wasn't a bum. Bynum's biggest problem was his knees. So his knees went out, and once his knees went out,
his brain went out with him.
His brain was always sort of dicey, but he had the ability to offset that a little bit. But yeah, once that went, he was gone, and yeah, his knees. He was super unhealthy. Honestly, he could be another one of those that you could do almost a what if type of deal. Because if he doesn't get hurt.
Well, again, this is the other thing too, where again, I think if you look at maybe that impact of a Grant Hill in the locker room to then be able to really help to maybe alleviate some of that mental issue. It's like, hey, big man, let's talk about this. Let's kind of let's talk about a plan here. Let's get this because we need you because we got Kwame Brown coming in the next year and we don't need that. He ain't gonna help us.
No parts. Actually, Kwame Brown would have been on that team.
Well, he came in. I'm looking at it now. He came in the 05-06. He wasn't in the 04-05 team when Grant comes in. When Grant would come in.
Okay.
So they need Bynum. They need Bynum to be solid because Kwame Brown ain't helping them a lick. And it also pissed me off because he took my boy Ho Grant's number.
That's right, he did. He did.
But so Brian ain't gonna help. You got Brian Cook, who's a serviceable back, off the bench guy. You've got that one guy, Sasha Vucevic, which was actually a pretty solid point guard off the bench for them as well. And this is also when I think the previous year was a year where Luke Walton started coming in again. So off the bench guy, come in, smart player, do some. I mean, you're not going to be relying on them. But I mean, if you also look at the Bulls bench, by the time you really start getting there,
you don't get down to the bench. That stuff matters in today's NBA far more than it did back then.
Yeah.
If you
especially in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Playoffs was only about 8 deep. Today, it's really the playoffs are only about 8 deep. I mean, to be honest, we think
but the whole season you can go 10, like 12 players.
That's true in the regular season.
Yeah. Not in the playoffs.
But you also remember back then, teams didn't take off half the season either. They actually played all 82 games or 75 plus games. They didn't do the, what did they call it? Not time management, but I forget what the something management. Basically, where they take games off. And honestly,
I know what you're talking about.
That as much as I would like to take a shot at LeBron with the softness, it's not LeBron. He does go with it, but it's not him. It's actually Pop. Pop invented that whole thing. Yeah, absolutely. Because I just remember them getting fined for it the longest time. They were the first ones really got fined for it. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there as far as the conversation. In 07-08 is where Bynum starts having trouble.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so not long. I mean, he's not, what was that, 05? So 3 years? 2, really?
2.
He's starting to have problems.
Yep.
Do you
but they were able to get Paul Gasol.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. So do you think that Grant Hill in 2007, 2008 is still a power to be reckoned with? Is he still an all-star? This would be 13. He'd be a 13-year veteran at this point. 14, heading to his 14th.
I don't think all-star. But again, I think if you look and I think you brought up a good point of kind of just looking at his career trajectory and at least the level of play he had, kind of offset that. So this would have been probably about 2 to 3 years in post injury.
Right.
Oh, so if we were to map this to his play, how he played post injury, this would probably be him 3 years after the injury, probably.
Right.
Like as far as just like his level of play. But depending, he might be kind of quote unquote older, but also in the sense like he'd be older, but he also wouldn't. He'd just be older, not necessarily dealing with that level of an injury, just more kind of just the nagging stuff.
Well, I mean, older does sap his ability.
Sure.
It would sap. It just wouldn't sap it 1 year to the next. It would sap it over 4 years.
I think an all-star. I don't think so. I think that where you would start to see here is, you kind of start to see where it's like, okay, we need to start thinking about a succession plan.
They still have, I say, and tell me what you think of this. I say they still make the deal for Gasol. I say they still make that deal because it doesn't affect anything that they traded away to get him.
Right.
So they trade his brother for him, of course. Mark Gasol went for Paul Gasol.
And that's probably that was a much better move.
Oh yeah. And, I think honestly,
the thing
Marc Gasol credit. To be fair,
Marc Gasol is a solid player.
Like, oh, he's gonna be a bum. He's terrible.
No, he's never a bum.
Big. He's
never a bum.
He was good.
Yeah.
Hey, he got a title in 30 years later in Toronto. So
yeah, there you go.
That's it. Yeah.
I think that. So, but also, I think having a player like, so you still have Lamar Odom. You have Paul Gasol. You still have
Odom. By this time, it started.
He's starting declining, but then you've also got like other guys you can kind of start to help fill in for him too.
There by that time, Luke Walton.
Yeah. They bring in Trevor Ariza.
Yeah.
So again, I would still think Grant Hill would be a better starter, and have Ariza come off the bench, whereas Ariza was starting, which was fine. He was a good defender. But at that point in time, he wasn't even like the 3-and-D wing that he turned into.
Well,
so
Ariza, I thought Ariza was the 3-and-D. That was pretty much all he did.
No,
he was a defensive guy.
He didn't have the 3.
He didn't have the 3.
That's what I mean. Like he was a defender, but he didn't have the 3-point shot to go along with it that he developed.
I couldn't remember where he was. It was Houston where he really.
Yeah,
he got that. That was it. Yeah.
He didn't have that. He didn't have that. Again, like we talk about forwards, not like still needing to develop their shot. So he still needed to develop it.
I have a question actually.
Okay.
Is Ariza coming off the bench? I don't think he does. I would see the lineup of Derek Fisher coming off the bench, and Hill is really your point guard.
Oh, okay. I could argue that. I'm just saying I wouldn't. What I was going to say was I wouldn't put Ariza on the floor to take Hill off. The floor.
No, I think they would actually be quite helpful to the other because by this time Grant Hill, whereas he was a good defender early in his career,
he would no.
Yeah.
I could see that. That's what
Ariza's for. Like he's the guy.
He'd still probably have a decent jump shot. You'd have Kobe and Gasol primarily being your major offensive thing. So Grant, then even kind of offloads Grant even more at that point.
Right.
And then you've got still have Lamar Odom, who I mean, even if he's dropping off at this point, could still give you buckets here and there. Right. And then depending on how you want to start to bring the people in again, then you got your Waltons you can bring in, your Vucevic's you can bring in. You could switch up the lineup, bring Fisher and let Hill rest. Different things like that to where he could still be a solid performer here. Right. This is they lost the finals to the Celtics. That was that big 3.
That was the Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce. I don't know why I always slightly forget Paul Pierce.
Yeah, I'd argue they'd still lose that because they lost it. They lost it. They only got 2 games out of that. It went 2-4. So they might have gone like 4-3.
Yeah, I think it goes. Team was, you know how there's sometimes there, and this is total hocus pocus stuff, but I still some reason believe it. There are some teams, the destiny kind of use that word. There's some teams that are just gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have rolled out the 68 Celtics that won or it was a 68,
with the National Guard.
They won all the championships, or the Lakers from the 80s, or the Celtics in the 80s, or the Bulls in the 90s. You could have rolled any of them out there and they still would have lost. You know what I mean? It was certain teams, it was just gonna happen. I kind of feel that way about the Celtics that year.
Because you got to consider too, they back when bigs were still important. They had what's his name? Can't remember his name now. Big guy. They brought him over from OKC. Kendall Perkins
on ESPN now.
Kendall Perkins.
Big Perk.
And they had prime Rondo.
It was prime. Well, no, remember Rondo? He wasn't prime. He hadn't even got to prime Rondo yet. He was. Was he a rookie? How old is Rondo in that year? So Rondo's a nobody at that point.
Oh, was it the year after that?
Over. Yeah,
it was a year after that.
That was like his coming out party.
Okay. So let's look at the year after. So the year after that, at 08-09, the Lakers won against Orlando.
Yeah, so 06-07, he's a rookie.
And then they won against Boston in 09-10. And then after that. So Rondo wasn't. So I guess it depends. Like for me, like what I remember is like it was that championship year.
Rondo
and
is
like, to me, Rondo was like, and again, the way they were constructed, I really like the way Boston was constructed that year. Rondo was that defensive gnat.
Oh, absolutely. But he
he might have gotten. I mean, he's been better, but like to me, like that it never led to anything. So like to me, like that, like when I think about like his effect on the court, like actually helping to lead to like that's what it actually helped to lead to a championship. And he was just wrecking people. Like offenses were having a big time problem actually getting their stuff set up because Rondo would just steal your lunch money.
Well, anytime you look at Rondo's height, which isn't all that impressive, he's 6'3", 6'4",
but he's got like arms from New York to LA,
like 6'10",
something like that. It's stupid.
Like some ridiculous, which you don't know. You're like, why is he always getting his hand on every pass? Like, how bad are y'all at passing the ball? Why does he touch every single pass you throw? Well, when he can reach this much further than he should be able to reach at his height, that's
he's sitting there holding out brooms.
Huh?
He's sitting there holding brooms on their end.
Yeah, it's just he does this. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So wingspan, he would have fit really well in. That might have been, you know how you always talk about some players that change the way people look at things. I want to say Rondo might have been the first player, and maybe it's just where I was paying attention. He may have been the first player that I heard something called wingspan used. Not that other people didn't have it. I mean, Scotty had some ridiculous wingspan.
Oh, sure.
But where that was like.
Because it was just so ridiculous based compared to his height.
Sure, yeah,
But I would say that, let's see. So where are we looking? So we're getting kind of on the tail end of. So we're looking at 2010, 2011, 2011, 2012. You know. All this stuff and again, there's also things like just like contracts and stuff like that you got to consider.
Of course.
Gameplay wise, mentality wise, again, to where he says, okay, he's just getting older, not necessarily still like getting older and still dealing with a bad injury. Consider like even with the injury, he didn't retire to 2013.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
So he's probably, again, depending on contracts and stuff like that, I would say he's,
without the injuries, does he play a couple more years?
That's what I'm wondering. I think you might still get one more year out of him, maybe two, depending on where he is and how they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I think because then he's definitely coming off the bench at that point, and he's kind of more of that statesman, that locker room coach. You know what I mean? With the players at that point. If depending on if the Lakers were somehow decide to keep him and they would make that work, I also think that he's also one of those guys that wouldn't be like, he was never really one of those guys that was like hard pressed fighting for money.
No, he knew how to invest his money and stuff like that. He comes from the good family, and
and he would have been more accepting as things going on. He'd also kind of recognize I'm not the player I was. Why would you be paying me that much? So they could have made it work. I'm just trying to think about points. They like, if the Laker organization wanted to hold on to him and he wanted to stay, then sure, they probably could have kept him on. And then it's probably kind of around that 2010, maybe like after that 2010 season, that you kind of start seeing him maybe sitting on the bench more, and not necessarily being the active player, but start helping, still contributing and still really helping to bring something to the. Because also the big thing there is that once you start getting into that time. So 2012, 2013. Let me look at this here. So it was the 2011.
2011, you got the Dallas Mavericks that win in the championship versus
the Eagles. But also I'm just looking at the personnel here. This is when Kobe said, "I want Ron Artest," because it was a year before that Artest was giving him problems. And so then he brought, and then became Meta World Peace on the Lakers. And so with the defense and actually being able to help on the rebounding and things like that, I wouldn't have been surprised if that kind of been where they might have actually put World Peace in there, actually starting ahead of Grant Hill, and then starting to figure out they still would have had Fisher, but they also had Steve Blake was the guy that was really kind of starting to step up in that point guard role. Right. Especially that starting point guard role. Yep, kind of coming in, and especially that first season is probably kind of like with the Lakers, it was probably kind of like split minutes, between him and Fisher. But Steve Blake was more of a true to form point guard.
Sure.
So he could also come in and help with that too. Again, if you wanted to, If you want to kind of play it the way you were talking about it, where Hill was playing the point guard role, then you could also, like the true point guard role, then you could see World Peace in there, and then him playing point, and then him and Steve Blake and Fisher, because Fisher was also in his 15th year at this point. So
by this time they are very much fading. Now the Lakers do win 2 more titles. They win in 2009 and 10.
Right.
Versus the Orlando Magic
and I don't see why having Grant Hill on that. Oh, I know, but I don't see why having Grant Hill on that team would stop them from winning those.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
If they still make all the other moves, then I think you still have it. So that means you're saying Grant 3? 3-1 in the finals?
How many would he have won? How many did the Lakers win from that 04? Let's say let's say 04-05 to 2011.
2.
Okay, so they won 2.
And you say you don't feel that they would have beaten. I guess the question is this: do they beat the Spurs at least one of the? I say
at least one. At least they. I think they split it.
Okay.
I think they split it.
Okay. So in that case, then you're looking at 05. Let's say 05 when he gets there. Basically, he walks in and he's that guy.
Right.
And so he meets his old team in the playoffs, in the finals rather, his old Detroit team.
Yep.
And he beats them.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
And then, so here's my next question. The next year, Dallas has their 1 year of their their early year of they were a good team that year.
Oh yeah, they were.
The team that they won
were.
the championship with was actually not as good of a team. It wasn't nearly as good of a team. This was Dirk was in his prime. That group that lost to Miami, the Dwayne Wade Miami, Dwayne Wade and Shaq Miami, no less. Does the NBA get Kobe versus Shaq that year?
God, I hope so.
Would they?
I think this is one of those things where the NBA gods just have to kind of make that happen. I'm saying yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm saying yes. Just because. I mean, and I think it would be fair. I mean, I guess the question is I would need to take a closer look at what was going on with the Lakers team that year.
Sure.
And then maybe take a closer look at kind of analyze like what would like a non-majorly injured Grant Hill would have added to it. If that would have been enough to put him over the edge. Right. So you say, did they lose the Western Conference Finals to Dallas that year?
Let me go take a look.
Because that's kind of that's kind of a big teller right there. So that you're looking at
I don't know that they were that good, to be perfectly honest. I don't remember them being very. Again, we're talking Smush Parker days, man. I want to say they hit the skids basically until Gasol came. I think Gasol was the big.
Oh sure.
They traded Shaq. They went down. Kobe was all world, but it was Kobe.
But that's Kwame, and this is something
Andrew
where you
Bynum was being hurt.
Yeah,
Andrew Bynum was like their next big hope, but
which is again kind of where if you had someone like a Grant Hill in there that could contribute at an even better level than he was able to before, could have helped.
Sure.
Maybe not completely save the team, but could have helped them be much. Definitely would have made them better, and you probably would have seen some serious hope. Sure,
it's a lot different.
Maybe, yeah.
It moves everybody down a slot. That's always the thing with the NBA or any sport, really.
Well, but also you got
to the places that they should be.
But you also got to consider, again, it moves people down a slot, but maybe even it's not even 19. Maybe it is closer to maybe like 16, and he's also like just wrecking assists like all over the place. And the other team is just getting more points because he's helping to make it easier for them to do so.
Well, I'm thinking he's still going to get his points because he's not old by this time. He's a veteran by all accounts, definitely.
Sure.
But he's not.
Yeah, he could do. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, he could do 18 and still at the same time move the needle for like other players scoring.
18,
could have made their shots easier.
Isn't so bad.
Exactly. But I want to say, I just for the optics of it and just for the history of it, I think that Miami Lakers game has to happen. Like, I just think it just has to happen. We're doing what if
in the league
it
that
has
we got
to.
robbed of.
Yeah,
we didn't get Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah,
and we didn't get Kobe and LeBron.
Right.
Yeah,
not in the finals.
Those were all things that would have now had.
That's another thing we could have. There's another thing there we could have seen.
There's this 1 year. But I don't think quite frankly, I say they split with the Spurs as well. I think the Spurs, because the 017 was better than the 05.
Right.
I don't know. I will go with that. The 017 was better than the 05 team. So of those two teams, I want to say that's the one that gets them.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
Yeah.
You're also just piecing it together. You're still needing some time to really kind of make the chemistry work and everything else.
Sure.
I think.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
You just forget how good the Spurs were. They were every other year. I mean, it was just like.
And they were just always in the mix.
Other year.
It was always in the mix too. Like it was never.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, they were never.
Years?
Yeah.
Pop was in the playoffs for 20 straight years. That's insane. Like that is. During the era of dynasties, during the era of tanking, small markets tanking because that's the only way you can get a top player. All this stuff, nah, he just does it. So yeah, that's crazy.
So what's the tally at? We're thinking here.
What's our tally at? So at this point, we're saying he got one with Orlando.
One with Orlando.
One with Orlando. We said that when he first gets LA, he gets that year or the next year.
That first year, that would have been that early year against the Spurs, right?
Here, let me
in the Western Conference.
We've got Lakers in Detroit. Okay, so yeah, the first year would have been Spurs in Detroit.
Okay. I don't think I kind of like, as you brought it up, I think you make a good point. I think they slimly lose to the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. That first year Grant Hill comes in. And then it's the later matchup that they beat the Spurs. And that's where they get that split.
Gotcha. Okay.
So first year, no. Second year, that might be where it kind of starts to take off for him. And then, because then you're looking at what, the 05-06 season.
So the year that the Dallas Mavericks basically don't get their title, or they get a title later, but they don't get their Miami Heat don't get a title. Dwayne Wade does not get a title. Is there a ripple effect because of that?
Well, see,
there's a Heatles team that's going to show up not too awful long because on the back of Dwayne Wade already having a title.
I think maybe, but that's where it kind of really starts to get real.
Yeah, we're really
getting down rabbit holes here. I think yes. I think because so what happens is that yes, they in that season in the real world they barely lost to the Phoenix Suns in that 2006 playoffs.
Right.
And I was Hill on that team.
I was starting to laugh because I think he was.
But yeah. But anyway, so I think they actually I think they beat the Suns, and if that would have been the season, they would have gone up against the Heat.
They would have played the Maverick. They would have had to get by the Mavericks.
Later.
To get by the Mavericks. No, they'd have to get by the Mavericks to get to the championship.
05-06?
05-06.
Oh, okay, you're right. Because I'm sorry, I was reading wrong. They says they lost the Western Conference first round to the Phoenix Suns. Okay.
Yeah, the Mavericks were 60-22 that year. Oddly enough, this was a better team than the team that they won the title with later. Dirk is healthy. Darrell Armstrong. This is one of those teams. They got Jason Terry. This is one of those teams you look at them and you go, why were y'all any good? Josh Powell, who was a really good player and then just stopped being.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that went down. They had Jerry Stackhouse on this team. But I'll never forget. It was just like the strangest thing. Josh Powell was a really good player. I have to go. I don't even know what happened to him, and he then just was not. Like
05. So we're talking about 05-06 here. I think
they beat him.
Yeah,
I do. I may be going star power alone, but star power means a lot.
It can, but also just thinking about the way it's constituted. And I think they really have to start ramping up soon. And I think it'd be close, but I agree. I think they win their first chip, no 6. '07 is when they 07 they
win.
When
you said they lost in 05.
They lost to San Antonio 05. This is when they tie it up.
Okay.
For the Western Conference. And then who would they have faced?
That would have been, they would have gotten their LeBron and Kobe. They would have gotten the LeBron and Kobe, and they're going to destroy LeBron.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroy, just like the Spurs did. They're going to beat the bejesus out of him because he had nobody. I'm actually not making fun of him at all. Nobody.
No.
He had me, Box of Rocks. It was
Sonny D.
A whole lot of nobodies on that team.
So that's 2 in LA.
That's 2 at that point. And then they get Paul Gasol. That's before Gasol gets there. They would be the back-to-back champions heading into their matchup with Boston. How are you feeling?
You know, it's hard for me to argue that they wouldn't win again. Because that's now we're talking about the 07, 08, where
we're talking about,
they already made it to the finals.
Yeah.
And they lost to Boston. But then they've got a Grant Hill to go along with Kobe and Gasol.
No. By this time, we're talking about the year where they could lose to Boston.
Okay, wait. So, I'm sorry. Okay, let me. What year are you talking about? Very clearly, what year are you talking about?
Miami. We said that they would have won. Maybe I've lost track.
Okay, so let me start back up here. Very. Yep. Let's be very clear. 2004, 2005. Grant Hill comes. They lose to the. They lose to the Spurs or
Spurs.
Okay. 05, 06. They win.
So Dallas is gone.
Right.
Yep.
2007, 2008.
They play Cleveland in the championship. No Spurs. They win.
2007, 2008? Because 2007, 2008 is when they lost the finals to the Celtics.
The list I'm looking at is they're listing it just a little weird. So basically, I'm looking at it by champions. So in 2004,
I'm looking at it from
Spurs.
Okay, what I'm doing is I'm looking at it from the actual. I'm only looking at the Lakers and what they did year to year to year.
Okay.
Right.
I'm looking at the actual championship.
Well, that's fine because then that can help. So in 07, 08, what this says is LA Lakers lost the NBA Finals 4-2 to the Boston Celtics.
Right.
So they
would have won back-to-back coming into that.
And they would have gotten Gasol at that point?
Yeah, they have Gasol here.
Woo.
That's where I'm like...
And Grant Hill. I mean, that's
the defending a back-to-back champion.
Exactly. I think that's a three-peat.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to say that too, except
maybe that's when they lose. Maybe that's when they lose.
The only reason is again that
seemed to never win.
Gonna win,
and that's fine. I think that fits because then then the number still comes in. They lose, but then they come back with a vengeance because in 08, 09, 08 and 09 they won anyway.
Yeah, they win the next 2.
And then against Orlando, and then they get their comeuppance.
Yep.
Because then they beat Boston 4-3 in 2010, and then I think that's it.
By that time 2011 rolls around, they're old.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's it. I think 2010 is it.
Okay.
So
and the Heatles were about to show up as well.
Yeah. So how many was that again? So that's the thing.
I think it's 4. I think it's 4.
It's 4 with the Lakers.
It's back-to-back, skip a year, back-to-back.
It's 4 with the Lakers. It's so that gives Grant Hill 5.
Yeah. 5,
but consider this.
Orlando, right.
Consider this. Where does that put Kobe?
True. Because Kobe's been the best. he's been the best player because that was always the knock, right? Kobe
only had 5 chips.
Yeah, Kobe got this, but in this reality, Kobe doesn't have 5. Kobe has 7.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Does he have one more than one Mr. MJ?
Michael Jeffrey Jordan?
He does have one more, but the argument, at least for the argument with Kobe is always he wasn't the best player on his team. Feel a hard time arguing at that point. Yeah. Does that make Kobe the greatest of all time? Does that make Kobe the GOAT?
At least, again, even at the very least, even more so in that conversation, and would probably be even. What I would say is like that would be even more of a back and forth. But what I would say is that it would really this would really edge LeBron out of the conversation.
Oh yeah. LeBron would
see what I mean.
Yeah,
because if Kobe's got 7, then it's very, very. And again, you got to consider here.
He's got 7. And he's 7-1.
Yeah,
or 2. 7-2. He's
7-2.
Yeah.
So then you can make the argument about the percentage of finals wins and stuff like that.
Yeah, just showing up doesn't count. You have a hard time arguing.
I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good rip. You're absolutely right.
Don't try and fight with the logic with the useless facts there, man.
Yeah, exactly, right? No, wow.
And you think again, you think about it. It's that Bulls 2.0 with Grant Hill in that place, a healthy Grant Hill that would have gotten him there.
Yeah, that team is a lot different. I mean, if we really want to just go down the rabbit hole here, since LeBron likes to just team up with star players, he'd have just gone to LA straight from Cleveland. So he would have been here by now anyhow. Actually, he would be here at the end. So maybe
so we'd have 4. So we'd have what, 4 chips?
Oh no, it would just keep going now because let's see, you bring LeBron in 2011. So they win that title, and the next
him playing again, so Kobe, he could have been sort of Kobe that.
And Grant Hill retire. They wait until they basically take everybody to the Golden State Warriors. that would be exactly how that went down. But yeah, that's just me making fun of LeBron.
So says Grant Hill's ankle is the same as Ian's view of MJ being overall better than LeBron, shaky and unreliable.
Yeah, see championships, buddy.
KG in that gap, maybe, but like
I got a what if for you.
Okay,
I got a what if for you. Not tonight. We're gonna do this another time. This would be one we need to do some research and really go down the rabbit hole on. KG got screwed up in his career all because of, well, not all because, but a big part of it. Do you remember Joe Smith?
Oh, good God.
Do you remember who? You know
I remember Joe Smith. I remember Joe Smith.
Do you remember what happened with Joe Smith? Like the only reason Joe Smith is anything as far as NBA history.
Okay, I don't even remember that because.
So the only reason it was one of the shadiest deals. They basically paid him. They were usurping the salary cap. Basically, they did like a handshake. Hey, buddy, listen, I'm gonna get you some money up under the table. I'm gonna need you to sign 3 one-year deals at like 1.5 million, and we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna give you like 10 million under the table over here. Pay no attention to that. But we're gonna just do that. So anyhow, the NBA came down with a fine and a half. They took away like all their draft picks for 4 or 5 years. It was some insane penalty that they ended up paying. I have to go back and look. I don't remember all of them. I want to say that was like 2. It was right during while KG was everything. And KG, if you look back at his numbers, it's just crazy numbers. Not Boston. By the time he got to Boston, he wasn't washed, but he was at the end of his prime. He was declining by that time. There's a reason that Boston didn't end up going on like three titles, real dynasty, that type of thing. He was older by that time. He was more MJ of 97, 98 as far as like star players still, but you knew it wasn't too awful long.
So we say that Hill would have walked away with a solid 5 and could have potentially, just by going to that team and certain things holding true, just because of the fact that we would have had the team and Kobe would have been happier. The walk away impact would have been Kobe ending up potentially with 7, at least 6. It would have been enough to get him 1 more for sure.
Oh, right.
Possibly 2. So, I mean, if anything else, he could have helped walk away and really been the pivot point to really help Kobe Bryant. Which, again, if you think about it, you can talk about like who didn't have one on their team. Kobe Bryant never really had a true to form Scottie Pippen equivalent.
Scottie. Right.
And Grant Hill could have, like, no brainer filled that role.
Perfectly. Healthy Grant Hill.
Sure.
No ankle injury Grant Hill.
Yeah.
As what we're saying.
Minor nagging stuff, because even Pippen had his own. I mean, everyone did.
Pippen by the end was
certain level of equivalency, things, fair enough. But not that level of an injury.
Age, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, if you can stay healthy and, at age 37 is playing like you're age 24, that's going to go well for you. Like you're going to be the greatest of all time. Let me just tell you, that's going to be it.
Kobe get to 7 chips.
But if Kobe got 7 and is 7-2 in the champion in the finals, that would be tough.
All right. Well, on that note, whether our voice is all jacked up or not, this is this is Getting Work signing off.
Later, fam.